I am so excited to make this art project with you today. We are making the Monet bridge over the pond, and in your packet you'll see a direction sheet like this. And so I'm just going to follow these steps to create a bridge and pond with you. Now, of course, I want you to feel free to make it more unique. You don't have to do exactly what I do. You don't have to choose all the colors I choose. But if you want to follow me step by step, that's fine too. First of all, we are going to start with crayon. If you have oil crayons, I highly suggest you use these because oil crayons are super fun to blend, and they are brighter and more vibrant than regular crayons. But since most of you probably don't have oil crayons, I'm going to use regular Crayola crayons. So I picked out a few colors ahead of time. I decided I'm going to use purple for my bridge, and so that's the first step. The first step is to make sure you've got your paper in the long direction, or what we call the landscape direction. And you're going to make a bridge that goes all the way from the left side to the right side. So you might want to draw a couple guidelines of where you want to start, how high up you want to go, and where you want to end. And then you can just connect those with kind of a sketchy curve so that you can kind of fix it if you need to. And just make it a little thicker in some places or a little thinner in others, and make a nice curve. All right, the next thing you need to do is go down about 3 fingers, make a guideline. 3 fingers, make a guideline. And then you're going to make a curve that matches that same curve. And so you have 2 matching curves. All right. Now the next step is going to be to put in the railings, and the way that we do that is by drawing a bunch of long rectangles. So I'm going to make a rectangle here, and then I'm just going to keep going, making rectangles across the top like so. I'm going to leave room to make more rectangles on the bottom. So then on the bottom, you just match those up so that it's going to look like there's a post right down here. See how it looks like that's kind of connected? So you just have to match them up all the way across. All right, so when you're done with that, you're going to need to fill in a little bit with your crayon. So you're going to need to make the bottom part kind of darker. When you're using crayons, you can use shading techniques. You can press harder on the bottom to get it to look darker, and then you can press lighter where you want it to be a lighter color. So I'm pressing nice and dark on the bottom and making it lighter as I go up. I'm going to do that again in the middle. And this way you can straighten out some crooked lines or just make things look a little bit more how you want them. And then I'm gonna do the shading on the left side of all the posts. So I'm doing darker on the left and getting lighter as I go to the right. There, that looks like a bridge. Okay. Now, the next step you need to do is to draw a horizon line. And so I'm just going to grab a blue crayon for that because mine is going to be separating the sky from the pond. And my suggestion is that you start in this bottom window, and then you imagine it going exactly horizontally under the bridge, and you just make a nice straight horizontal line that goes into the other window. Now that's all the blue you need to color. The rest of the blue we're going to do with marker and water and a wet paintbrush. But that's what we need with the crayon. Okay, now step 2 is that we're going to add some trees and bushes behind the bridge. Here's a few different options. Like you can see on the back of this one that there's different colored green trees, but on this one they did kind of a nighttime picture, and this one has like these warm colored bushes and trees. So there's not just one right or wrong way to do it. I am going to use a few different shades of green in my crayons, and I'm going to draw some different shaped bushes and trees. Okay, now I am going to use my green crayons to add some plants in the foreground. So if you notice on these examples, there's some different colors of plants in the foreground, so we could add some other colors in. This one uses mostly green, grassy shapes and put some lily pads in. So it's up to you. I also have a few ideas here for how you can draw different foliage. So I'm gonna add a few of these to the foreground of my picture. Again, we're using crayon. Now I'm going to show you what to do after you're done with the green plants. Now you can see I added some green oval shapes in this area. Those are going to be the lily pads or that are floating in the pond. I might add a few little flowers on top of those. Lily pads sometimes have little flowers growing on them, so I might add a little bit of color with that. Then you could add a frog too. Frogs like to sit on lily pads. I am not going to do that. I'm going to move on to the next step. The next step is really fun. So I need you to find blue washable Crayola markers. Now I found two different shades of blue, so I think that'll help me make some really cool water. What you're going to do is you're going to draw a few wavy horizontal lines in the area that's the pond. But the trick is that you also want to have a paintbrush handy and a cup of water, because as soon as you lay down the marker, I want you to get your paintbrush wet, and then you're going to smear the ink around to make it look like paint. So here we go. I'm going to add some blue wavy lines, but you can't wait too long to change it into paint. So I'm going to dip into water, and then I'm going to smear around that blue paint and make sure to spread it around. Now you'll notice that the lines that you drew with your marker don't disappear entirely. So make sure when you draw them that you like how they look, because they're going to stay a little bit. You'll smear them and they'll get lighter, but they'll still be visible, which is kind of cool when you're making like wavy water to still see that line there. The other cool thing about this art project is the crayon resists the water. So it's no big deal if you kind of paint right over it. You'll see it just kind of bubbles up and doesn't stick to the crayon. So don't be afraid to get all the way into the areas that you drew the green plants so that you can kind of see the water floating around behind it. Now the other thing I want you to do is I want you to paint the sky right now, but instead of putting any blue lines in the sky, I want you to just take some of your blue ink from the bottom and smear it behind your trees. So just pick it up with your paintbrush and move it up here. If you need to add a little bit more marker, do it on the bottom, and then you can bring it to the top by adding water on your paintbrush. So your sky will be a very light blue. Now I wanted to add a little bit of this color too. It's kind of a light bluish green. So I'm gonna just color that in. It's okay to color over wet paper. It'll be nice and smeary, and then you can blend it together a little bit. All right, so you decide when you think it's done, when you like how it looks. There is my pond, there is my bridge, there are my plants. I think I'm happy.